Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Great to see you. Um, Welcome to our Freelance Friday call. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that stops so many 50 plus freelancers in their tracks because they don't really understand how the world of freelance works. And we have this thing called the profile. And it's kind of analogous to a resume. You know, it is to some degree a history of the work you've done. It gives a potential freelance buyer an idea of uh, what kind of skills you have, what kind of experience, how long you've been doing things. But it's also very different than a resume. And one of the first mistakes that people make, and that's not really included in the list I have for you today, there's three specific things. But the mistake that a lot of people make is say, oh, I'll just take my resume and kind of cut and paste it into my profile. And buyers hate that. You know, uh, they don't want to look at a resume because a profile is very different. They want to see things that are you've done in your past. They certainly want to see that kind of stuff, but they want to see it from the perspective of the kind of task that you would be doing for them. You know, they might be hiring you initially, everybody initially, for a 1 or 2 hour job. It's not getting married. You know, it's going on a date to see if we like each other, kind of thing. And there's nothing that kills the buzz of a freelance buyer as seeing page after page of detail of what you did in your career. They just don't want to have any of it because usually when they post a job, they might be looking at 5, 10, 15 other people. And you can imagine that if it takes, you know, 4 minutes to read your resume, you multiply that by 10 other people, and that's 40 minutes just to get through the resume. So there's a real emphasis on creating your profile for somebody that's going to do scanning. They're going to scan down the page. They're not going to read it word for word. And so there's some things that you want to do, and you only want to talk about skills that relate to the work that you would be doing for them. For example, if you made buggy whips from 1977 to 1981, they don't care about that, you know, because you're not making buggy whips for them. But if you were in the marketing department at the buggy whip company, that might be interesting to them to know that you had experience in that. But it has to be relevant experience in that. So most people, if they have a comprehensive resume, like many of us have, and many still do, uh, it's too much. It's too much, and you got to cut it way down, and you got to cut it down with the idea in mind that you want to give them information that relates to the kind of work that you're want to work on in these online systems like Upwork, freelancer.com, Fiverr, all those different systems. So one of the things to know, that one of the fabulous things about these freelance networks that I just mentioned is it's really a place where you can work in shorthand. And by that, I mean, if you've ever worked on a team, whether it's, it could be at work, it could be a group of people that you worked with over a period of time, you know, you all get to the point where you know each other, you understand how to communicate about certain things. And we used to say we can talk in shorthand about this topic. You know, I mean, just a few words because you've been doing it, you do the same thing every week, every month, that sort of thing. Well, the same is true online. And there are certain things that irritate the buyers online that they see in your profile. And I'm going to go through a few of those. The first one is a profile biography that begins with the phrase, and I see these every month. You know, we do profile reviews for our members, and somebody sends in one that says, "Hello, my name is," and I've heard freelance buyers, because I interview them fairly frequently to find out what they're interested in and how they want to see things and all that kind of stuff. And they say, the person's name is on the page. It's already on the page. So hello, my name is tells me immediately that that person is not familiar with how you work in these online networks, because you don't repeat information that's redundant. Your name is in, I don't know, 24-point type at the top of the page, and you don't have to say hello, my name is, and type out your name again, because that's irrelevant. Buyers, as they open up your profile, they want to read it, they want to look at it, and they want to get right to the heart of it. They don't want to sort of dilly dally with introductions and that kind of thing, because, as I said, they've got 10, 15 proposals and profiles to take a look at. And you want to sort of absorb at your core, and I've explained this to some people, say, okay, yeah, I get that. And then I look at the next one they write and it says, hello, my name is, so this is really important stuff. You'd never have a good second chance to make a good first impression. And so in the mind of most buyers, they'll put a demerit right there. They may not read any further because it's such an obvious mistake that a rookie is making, that it says, I don't want to work with this new freelancer if they're not smart enough to figure out how to write a good profile. So that's, one thing to pay attention to. The next thing is to say something like, I have worked remotely since 2020, and I have a cat named Spider. This is not a dating profile. It's assumed pretty much that of the 20 million people on this network, that everybody works remotely. So again, you're providing that redundant information that just enrages buyers, because it's just extra stuff they have to plow through, and it tells them that you don't really know exactly how this game is played. And this whole idea of making a bad first impression is something that will haunt the person that continues to make that mistake. The good news is that your profile, once you get it set up, every buyer that comes to you, or every prospective buyer that comes to you, is typically going to go through and read that bio. And if it's a good bio, if it's tight, if it's not redundant, if it's not irrelevant, if it's not dragging in all these sidebar conversations of, I have a cat named Spider and I like to garden and that kind of thing, that stuff is not relevant to the specific job in particular that you're doing. Now, there may be times when you're writing an article on organic gardening, and then the fact that you are a gardener would be a relevant fact. But in the overwhelming majority of jobs and assignments you're going to bid on, you're not going to put that in there. So very important to be tight in that, in that language. And this is not a narrative. They're not leisurely reading like you might read a novel or read a character description in a novel. They're under the gun. They've got things to do. They're hiring freelancers to make things happen for them. And the last thing you want to do is wind up with a chatty freelancer that's going to have to tell you a story from the personal life. Things I've heard is the bad airline trip they just had, the argument they had with their spouse. These are, of course, not contents for this kind of thing. That's interpreted as very needy and something that you want to avoid at all cost. And the third part of this is at the end, and this is almost word for word of what I have heard in these, is people will say, "Thank you for taking the time to read my proposal." And the the uh, the dynamic here, and I this kind of comes from neurolinguistic programming, and it kind of comes from what they call subtext in Hollywood scripts. And so if a husband in a Hollywood movie says, uh, uh, honey, is everything okay? And the spouse responds, yes, everything is just fine. The subtext, the true uh, meaning of that conversation is, no, it's not fine. I'm mad or upset. And also, I don't want to talk about it. So, in spite of saying everything's fine, you have this subtext coming along that is the true meaning of the situation and the communication. And some people are able to figure that out, and other people are not able to figure it out. So there's a lot going on there. So when you say thank you for taking the time to read my proposal, you're ignoring a fundamental truth. They are, in this context, a business person that has a need, and you are a business person that can potentially serve that need. So, from a positional standpoint, you're both on the same level. You don't have to apologize for who you are. You don't have to ask, or what I would call grovel, and say thank you for taking your time. It may be the best 10 minutes they've spent in the last 2 weeks because they're about to hire you, and you're competent, you deliver work on time, and they will benefit tremendously in the future from having you doing freelance work for them. When you say thank you for taking the time, you're immediately saying your time is more important than mine. You're saying I have low confidence in my own skills because probably a lot of people don't take the time to read this because and after all, that's why you're putting it in there. And that telegraphs the person that you're not confident about yourself. You're not confident about the work you can do for them. And it really, starts raising red flags, yellow flags, that kind of thing, that this may not be the freelancer for me from the freelance buyer's perspective. They want to see a statement from somebody that says, this job looks good. Here's my approach to it. Here's my background in it. Here's, I have this education. I have these skills, that sort of thing. Just a pretty clear and succinct, focus on what it is you want to do. And I think of this in my mind's eye. I think of an archery range where you're shooting arrows at the target. And just by its nature, every arrow in your that you describe in your bio will not hit the bullseye of the target. Some will hit the bullseye because it's exactly what you want to do. Some will hit around the bullseye, which is okay because that's going to give the person an understanding of your work history, your career, the kind of things you've done. They're not looking for just what your career was or your discipline was or your industry was. They're also looking for insights into your work habits, the clarity with which you express yourself, that kind of thing. And even though those arrows might be not exactly in the center of the bullseye, they might be a ring or two out, but still add to the overall favorable impression. And because a bio is a little bit generic, it covers a broad area. We focus a little more narrowly in the proposal we do. But because the bio is a broader area, there might be some arrows that go, don't even hit the target. They go flying off in space. But I heard somebody say recently, and I want to. I think uh, the thing was, if you can get 3 out of 10 shots to hit in the 2 inner circles of an archery target, that you can compete at the Olympic level. So the 3 arrows out of 10 that you shoot. So in all things, same thing in baseball. If you hit 4 out of every 10 times at bat, that's a batting average of 400, which is the difference. If you can hit 4 out of every 10 times they throw you're at the bat and they're throwing the ball at you, that means a couple $1,000,000 additional in pay. So it's these little differences, and a lot of baby boomers come into this, and people that are 50 plus, because they grew up in a world where your boss may have said, well, if you can't do this, we'll find somebody that can. And that is a little tape that sometimes plays in the minds of people that are doing this stuff. And you just want to eliminate that voice in your head, and certainly never, not saying it'll be gone forever, but you never want to let it get onto the page that your buyer is looking for, and communicate that sense of, I'm not sure about myself. I'm less than you. You're the almighty, powerful freelance buyer. And no, you're two people. They have a need. You have a service, and you want to find out if your characteristics fit their need. And you want to avoid sending messages of low confidence, of subservience, and that kind of thing. Because what freelance buyers are hiring, they're not hiring an employee. They're not going to have somebody sitting in front of them in an office or a cubicle or somewhere in the building that they can go by and look at 3 or 4 times a day just to make sure they're working, and they get emails and documents, and they can see progress. When they hire a freelancer, they know that person is working remotely. So in most cases, they're going to get a lot less interaction with that person than they would with an employee, even if they're working with a remote employee. The remote employee is attending various departmental meetings. They're communicating with other employees. They're copying you on email. So the activities of an employee, even remote, are much more visible than somebody who is not, that is a freelancer. It just kind of comes with the territory. I just read a statistic recently that there are about 1.7 billion people on the planet, adults of working age, that are working, that are earning an income. Obviously, there's people of, in the adult range who have chosen not to work. Some have disabilities, although many freelancers find that with certain disabilities, it's very easy to work online, because they don't have to commute and navigate an office and that kind of thing. And they can have, for example, hearing and vision impaired people have tools that they can use at home, special tools on their computer systems that enhance or give them a little scroll at the bottom of the words that are being said, so they can read what the conversation is all about, that kind of thing. So lots of good reasons to do this. The freelance buyers love the fact that they're freelancers that they do work with tend to operate a little bit more independently. They tend to take charge when something goes awry. They get it back on track. Sometimes that means having a conversation with your freelance buyer, but other times it just means considering the alternatives and picking the one that you think makes the most sense if it's a relatively minor decision, and just proceeding with that, and knowing that if you're writing an article or something like that, when you share a draft with the client, that they're going to say, I don't like this paragraph here. I think it does too much of this. you can easily go in and correct that. And uh, okay, Bob's got a point of view here. Let's take a look at this, because Bob's always got good insights. Regarding the thank you for reading my proposal at the end, I disagree that it sends the wrong message to the hiring manager, but it's just my opinion. Laughing out loud. Really enjoy your insights. Yes, and uh, I guess this is derived from my experience. Where I've been a member of Upwork, or Elance, which was the predecessor company that got merged, that became Upwork. I joined them in 2000, so 23 years ago. And I've read thousands of proposals, because as a company, having been in business for 23 years, we've purchased lots of services and lots of help along the way as we're doing this. And I agree that I would ask Bob you to look at this distinction. The hiring manager is usually, that's in the uh, context of being an employer. And I agree that saying something like, thank you for reviewing my proposal, or something like that, I would never say thank you for taking the time, because taking the time always implies that your time is less valuable than yours, and you really don't want them to think or perceive that. But there might be something you could legitimately thank them for if they're a hiring manager. When you're doing business with somebody as two independent business people, that's where you're on more even turf. We all, yes, and Bob's saying, okay, that does make a difference. And yes, some of these differences are just little subtleties, little confidence. I can think on interviews that I've gone on over my career, and some went really well, and I was, wow, what happened? And I want to sit down and analyze it afterwards to kind of figure out what I did so I can do that again. And then some just go in a ditch, and same thing. You want to figure out what sent it into the ditch, that kind of thing. So those are three things that come up frequently. And the alternative to the hello, my name is, that I like really quite a bit on the bio part of your stuff is talking about is a question. Put a question in there. Would your next project benefit from the skills of an experienced project manager in the construction industry that's worked on projects between $10 million and $14 million, or something like that? When you ask a question, that lights up the person's brain. When you start, reading yet another profile, because the buyer, this might be their first one of the day, but it might be their 20th one of the day, and it starts out with a declarative sentence. It's like that little bird in the Peanuts cartoon, that it looks like it's just blah 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 blah. But when you look at brain scans of people, when they're, a declarative statement is made to them, their brain just kind of continues normal processing, when you can see the electrical activity as it's occurring in the brain. When you ask them the question, it lights up different parts of their brain, and it does what's called sets the flag. Because when somebody asks you a question, you have sort of an automatic circuit that says, well, I owe them an answer. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't really owe them an answer, but it just lights up different circuitry. And that's what we want to work for us, is that, that lighting up of new circuitry, and getting them to look at your profile and look at your bio in a slightly different way, because that's the difference. So where you can, use a question in your bio as right at the beginning, It obviously has to be a little bit broader than what you might put in the proposal, because the proposal is about a specific job. A bio is about not your entire career, but it's about the relevant parts of your career for the jobs that you want to work with on these systems. And just put a fine point on it. Go back and read it. Uh, some people have done dating profiles, and there's a whole different narrative to dating profiles. They do want to know that you like cats instead of dogs, and they do like to know that you like walks at sunset on a sandy beach and that kind of thing. But this is pretty much down to business. And if a buyer detects that, what I would call, for lack of a better word, is chattiness in a profile, they're going to say, is every time I have a conversation with this person, am I going to get, what happened when they went to the store today, or what happened on their trip over the weekend, or that kind of thing. And the reason that freelance buyers hire you is to save time. And that's what they're going for. Upwork quotes some industry statistics. The miraculous thing is it takes 30 to 60 days to hire an employee in a company. So if you've got a problem that you need to bring on an employee to address, you're looking at 30 to 60 days before that happens. And then you're looking for a training period as well. If you bring on a freelancer, the average time to bring on a freelancer is 3 days. So you can get a person, and in many cases, a fairly high-powered person, on the job solving the problem right away. What businesses think about is they think about the opportunity cost. If I could get somebody on the job and starting to fix the problem in 3 days, even if I have to invest some time over the next few weeks to educate them and work with them to accomplish our goals, that's far better than going through a 30 to 60 day interview process and then getting started. So Bloomberg fairly recently, let me see if I can post this, talked about that companies now, it's got to do a little magic here. Let me just take care of that. That companies are now preferring to hire, I think it was 75% of the time, they will hire a freelancer instead of an employee in an uncertain time, in periods of inflation and, things like high gas prices and all that kind of stuff. I've almost got it for you here. There we go. Okay. This is an article from Bloomberg, the financial company, and it will tell you, yes, it's 75% of U.S. businesses prefer to hire freelancers in an uncertain economy. So encourage you to take a look at that. If you're working in a company now and you think they should be hiring more freelancers, this is also something that you might want to, share with, your boss, your fellow workers. If you got a big project coming up, I was just talking to somebody that said they have a project coming up. They usually work with the internal staff, and for the first time, they're considering bringing in freelancers and having the conversation about what jobs do we bring in freelancers for versus what jobs do we use our own people for. And the discussion there centered around, to do this job, there are some people that have to know something about the company's history and processes and that kind of thing. But there are other parts of the job where they really don't have to have that knowledge. They can get little pieces of it on an ad hoc basis rather than having to be thoroughly versed in the company culture and that kind of thing. So just wanted to go over those things. Next week, we're going to be talking about the mistakes that people make in proposals and how to correct those. We'll be sharing, different things, because a proposal is substantially different than a profile. A profile gives a perspective on you, your career, and what you can do. And your proposal gives a perspective on specifically how you would approach the job request that the freelance buyer has posted. So lots of interesting conversation to have. And of course, we'll see our members on Tuesday night, and always happy to do that. And we have an interesting upcoming session this Tuesday night. There is one bit of training that I had in the early 90s. It was about 20 minutes in a seminar that completely changed the way I looked at doing business. And it serves me to this day, and will for a long time in the future, because I've proven to myself that perspective is a useful one to have. So that's what we're going to be talking about on our Tuesday night call, and we'll also probably touch on that a week from today. So look forward to seeing you again. Happy to answer any questions you might have. We monitor the chat in our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on LinkedIn. I want to thank the people from LinkedIn that threw a thumbs up our way. It's always nice to get a thumbs up. And we've just started broadcasting to LinkedIn now. This is, I think, our third time doing that, and always appreciate that, those pats on the back. So look forward to seeing you Tuesday or next Friday. And between now and then, have a great time freelancing. Take care.